Hi, my name is Quinten Hyde and welcome back to another episode of the Quinten Hyde podcast. Today I'm going to talk about a subject that I very much enjoy, which is the supernatural, the non-natural, paranormal, all that kind of stuff. I really enjoy that kind of stuff, and I also quite believe in it. Now I am what I like to call a little bit of a stoic believer, in the sense that I don't believe just anything that I see, and especially when other people tell me, about 90% of the time, I don't believe them. I believe it exists. I just don't believe it happens as much as people who believe. Oh my god, that was the worst sentence, but it was still grammatically correct, I think. Essentially, people who are really into that stuff, they see it everywhere. I don't think it's everywhere, I just think it's out there. Oh my god, that's a good sentence. Welcome! So here's the important thing. I'm not gonna tell you what you should believe. If you believe in the paranormal, this is probably gonna be a more enjoyable story. If you don't, then that's totally cool, and you can literally just go at this thinking that, okay, this guy believed that this happened, but it probably didn't. Because here we are all inclusive, doesn't matter what you believe. Welcome. I have, I can't count, 6 bullet points on my list that I want to talk about that I think are very interesting. For starters, it's really important to know that my whole family kind of believes in this, or like at least most of them on my mom's side. And we have had a lot of weird things as a family, and I'm going to tell you my favorite stories, even though one of them isn't exactly ours. So the very first thing, when I was a kid, I believed that I was able to see ghosts. And this became prominent pretty early on in my age. As a matter of fact, now that I think about it, I think the first time was as a baby. Now, of course, I can't remember what it was like being a baby, but my mom told me I was, recently born, as you are when you're a baby, and I was laying on one of those dressers, that you use to put diapers and clothing on your baby. And my mom told me that I was consistently staring into one direction. And she said, into one direction, the band, I could see the future. No, but I was looking into one side of the room, and my mom said, as a mom, you definitely know when your baby is just randomly looking versus looking into a specific direction. And I can't vouch for that. That could very well be possible. I don't know. But she was saying that I looked into a certain direction and started crying, a scared cry, which she says as a mom you can also very much differentiate. And she said that in that moment, as someone who also believes in that kind of stuff, she bent over me and yelled, "Leave us alone." And then I stopped crying. So that, if that happened the way it did, is the very first encounter that I might have happened as a kid. As I grew up, I at some point started telling my mom about people that I was seeing or hearing randomly throughout everywhere. And my mom settled on the idea that I could possibly see ghosts even to a slightly tiny bit. A great example of that, as a kid, I don't remember how old I was, I think I was 4. I walked downstairs from my bedroom into the living room and told my mom, "Mom, there's an elderly lady standing in my room." And my mom, being very stoic herself, she just went, "She nice though?" And I was just like, yes, she's very friendly." And my mom was like, "Okay, that's cool, let's get you back to bed then." But I still think, that is one of those horror movie things, your kid being like, "There is someone in my room." However, it wasn't always all fun and games, because I remember that this one thing that I refer to as, well, in English it would be something along the lines of shred, because it resembled a shred of mist, like a shred of fog, that I saw passing through my room every night. Many nights my mom had to sit with me until I fell asleep because I was terrified of that thing coming back, because it apparently, it never did anything or said anything. I actually remember this quite well, visually as well in my mind. It would basically pass through, the top of my wall on one end, and just pass through my room, just slowly, ever so slowly to the other side until it would pass out. Not pass out as in gone, dead, but it would pass back through the other side and just be gone. Never said anything, never did anything, didn't resemble anything alive, essentially, because, a cloud. But it was still something that terrified me, more than the actual people appearances that I think that I saw. So that happened for years before it was finally gone, and I don't fully remember all of it, but I remember that I was terrified of it as a kid. So at some point I was I think I was around the age of 10. all of it just kind of stopped. Like I never really had it again until at some point I was 17 or 18 years old and I was working at my supermarket job. I remember at one point, like I was pushing a cart and I looked to my left, and this was the very last time that I remember seeing what I believe to be an entity. And I remember it being a man in a, it's like, you know one of those longer trench coats that they used to wear like back in the day? And a hat, like not like a fedora, but like one of them old school hats. Does that make sense? I'm not entirely sure if the hat and the jacket were matching, and they were either very dark brown or black. And he looked at me with very like wide open eyes, almost as if it's like a scared reaction. But it was almost like for a second. But I remember like my heart was beating, and it was like, you know, you can't really tell your coworkers like, yo, this just happened. Because the people who believe in entities, they're going to be terrified. The people that don't believe in it, they're going to think you're crazy. Because most non-believers are not exactly nice to people who do believe in this kind of stuff. The same way, actually, that believers aren't really kind to non-believers. Why are we all so rude to each other? Why can't we all just accept each other's beliefs, right? Because, I mean, there's no evidence for or against it. So it's like, it should be a very neutral ground, but it doesn't really appear to be. But yeah, that's basically me versus ghosts, which is a very strange sentence that I didn't think I was going to be pronouncing ever. Oh, I misspelled something in my notes. I hate it when I misspell things. But to be fair, in my defense, I have been up for like 30 minutes. So this is the first thing I'm doing. I haven't even eaten breakfast yet. Oh no, the people who saw the video version of this, they just saw it. I touched my glasses and now I have this disgusting fingerprint right in my peripheral vision. Anyway, so this other thing that once happened to me, I was in, I think, this was what we in the Netherlands call Group 7, so I think I was 10 years old. The next day we were going to do a field trip to one of the Dutch islands, which was a lot of fun, and I had this dream. I had this dream that I was standing on like a higher ground, looking like a diagonal way downwards towards some other people, some kids, you know, my age, approaching me, and I was looking at them in the sunlight through some branches of trees that were like half covering my face. This was like the whole dream. The whole thing was just that. It was pretty much nothing. But then I freaked the heck out the next day. So me and my friends, we went to the island, and the teachers were like, you know what, just roam the island. The island is very small, by the way, just for context. You can just bike through it in like 20, 30 minutes max. It's like very small. It's like one village kind of a thing. And we went into the forest, and there was like this dead tree trunk there, and with like some rocks on it, and I climbed on it, and I turned around, and it was the exact same dream scene. And I remember freaking out, and I told my friends, because, oh yeah, for context, this is a little bit weird to a lot of people. I didn't realize that other people don't have this, but I pretty much never dream a face. I almost, like whenever I have like a dream, pretty much everyone doesn't have a face. And I thought it was standard, but it's not standard apparently, and I've had that for my whole life. But essentially, like, I didn't see those were my friends in my dream, but then, like, when it happened IRL, it was the exact, like, one-on-one, but then, obviously, I could see their faces. And I explained the story to them. I was like, this is gonna be sounding so weird, but this and this and this and this, and they were all like, yo, that is crazy. I was like, I know. And I don't know, still to this day, I still remember what it looked like very vividly. It was so strange. Additionally, this is also, because these are all like a little bit smaller stories until I get to one like really crazy one. So I pay a little extra attention to girls who are named Stephanie. And you're probably thinking like, wait, what? Because that sounds very strange. No, you see, when I was, this might very well be just coincidence, by the way, but when I was, how old was I? 17, 16? I'd never had a girlfriend before. And sometimes in your mind, you know, you like to think of ideas like, what if I had a girlfriend? I would do this and this and this. These situations, you know, you're just making up situations. And at some point, I was just like, what would I call my like girlfriend in my mind? That sounds so weird, but I ended up settling on the name Stephanie. I think it's a cool name, but I don't know. It just kind of came to me. I was just like, yeah, okay, you know what? Girlfriend, future girlfriend, Stephanie, sure. So I did that for like a longer amount of time. And I had never told anyone, because, you know, it's a little bit weird to tell people about your internal fantasies about ever having a relationship, regardless. at some point, my mom, I still lived at home, my mom started like making jokes like, oh yeah, when when you have a future girlfriend, and she just went like, okay, what would we call her for this scenario? Let's call her, I don't know, Stephanie or something. And I was just like, oh my God, Mom, this is crazy. And I told her that and she was like, I don't know, maybe we just vibe with the future. So from that moment on, which has like been years, I always pay more attention to girls who are named Stephanie, or like a little bit extra attention, because I'm like, yo, are we meant to be together? I don't know. Also, when I was preparing this podcast, I was writing this down. I realized that I pay more attention, or have had bigger crushes generally, on girls with S-dominant names. So like, girls who have an S as either their first letter or as like an important letter in the name. And you're like, what's an important letter in the name? But like my first ex, her name was Isa. And so the S is a pretty big thing in that. Like, and I had a quote-unquote girlfriend in elementary school. I don't count those because it's not a girlfriend when you're 8. Like, people count those as a relationship. I think that's weird. But her name was Isis, so that's like 2 S's, and that's like half the name. And it's like I remember like pretty much all of my biggest crushes, they pretty much all have like the S as an important placement. And I was just like, oh my God, oh no, please, my computer almost went off, like, and that's really annoying because I would have to unlock it, and that doesn't always go that smoothly. Anyway, so that was my little quick thing there. So if you find any girls named Stephanie over the age of 18, just all tag them my way, I guess. It's the future. I can't change it either, but I am very, very lonely. So, great idea. Then, this one is actually crazy, and I told a few people this story, but the thing is, and this is so annoying, me and my family, we saw it, but the proof is gone. But the fact that the proof is gone somehow makes it a more interesting story if you are willing to believe me. So, I don't fully remember how it started. Yes, got it. So essentially, at some point, I was going onto Google Street View, literally where you can just walk through streets on like the map. And I went to my parental house. I still lived there. I still live with my mom, my sister, and I'm not sure if she knew my stepdad at the time. I don't think she did yet. Anyway, we went over there. Like, I stood in front of the house, and I basically put like I put like one step to the side. So I was looking at our house diagonally. I don't remember why I was doing it. I thought it was just funny. And then I noticed something very strange. If you zoomed in on our chimney at the top of our roof, a tiny little, like, light bulby orb, like energy-looking orb, flew out of the chimney. It was like this little ball, almost shaped like what I believe, like, if you draw a tear, if you draw a water droplet or a tear, it kind of looked like that, but a little bit more rounded, so not that pointy at the end. And it looked like it was falling upwards out of the chimney, and it had this little tail of smoke coming after it, as it came out of the chimney. Important, these pictures were taken in summer, so our chimney was off, because we don't use a chimney, like, we don't heat up the house during summer, obviously. And I remember looking at that, and I remember so vividly that thing was red. The little ball orb was red. My mom, to this day, swears it was white, because she was like, yeah, it made me think of angels. I fully visualize it as red, or at least having like a red aura, or like a red stroke around the edges. I don't know where she got the white part from. I truly think it was still red. Anyway, you're probably thinking, oh, well, this could be weird because it's like a little glitch, or like a little like a lens flare. But here's where it gets crazy. A little while later, someone tracked down my address. This is a story that I've told on the podcast too, but in order to do that, in order to have that fixed, I wanted to blur out the sign we had in front of our house that had our names. Now, you can request blurring of signs or blurring of locations in Google when it comes to your privacy. So I had asked them to do that. This was obviously not from that angle that I saw the little orby thing from, but right in front of the house. And I requested them, could you please blur that out? What they normally do, because I researched this, is they blur out every older iteration of Google Street View pictures. Because in Google Street View, when you look at the top left, there's this little clock button. And when you click that, you can go back through all the years of Google photos. It's a lot of fun because you can go back and see your house in like 2008 and stuff, that kind of stuff. It's really fun. You can go back every year. And I know for a fact that that button was there in the beginning. Now, after they fixed that, for some reason, if you stood on the exact spot, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of schedule. They quickly had added a whole new layer of pictures to my street specifically. And especially, like the middle part had like a fully new set of pictures. While they had just gotten new pictures in Street View, which I already didn't quite understand. But here's where it gets crazy. If you stand on the exact spot, and this is even the case right now, if you stand on the exact spot from which you could see that little orby thing, that go back in time button full on disappears off of your screen. It just goes away. And I remember this because I wanted to show I think my grandma, like me and my mom wanted to show it. And the moment you stand there, there's a new picture set. That orby thing is not there anymore. And you can't go back in time. And you're probably thinking, oh, maybe, simply over there was like an error with the pictures, or like in your street, or like they wiped the street. But here's the thing. If you put one step to the side, you have the ability to go back 1 year. If you put another step to the side, the further you walk away, more years literally start appearing in that button. Because I had that button open at the beginning of the street, I had all the options. The closer you walk to my house, the more of the years just start to disappear. If you stand right in front of my house, you can still go back a few years and also see that it's blurred, like the sign, in every year. But take this one step further to that exact spot where you would see that orby thing, and not only do the years disappear, the whole button just disappears. You cannot go back in time, you cannot go look at that picture, and there is, every evidence that we had is fully removed. And my mom and I were, and my sister too, my sister had seen it as well. We were all just what? How? Why? What? Because you could argue oh yeah, they probably removed some other years because you asked to have them blur previous years on that sign. But here's the thing, from that perspective, the sign is not visible. So it's fully separated. So I had this theory that it was just anything, just something inexplicable or weird that a gigantic company or the government or whatever would absolutely know of. And it was brought to their attention when they spotted it after I requested to have the sign blurred out. Because they probably have to look at different perspectives, different angles to see if it's blurred out from all directions. They might have spotted it, might have removed it. I don't know, but it's freaking me out and I have no evidence because we never took screenshots and I'm so upset over that. But this does make the story better, I think, than me just going, there's a thing on there. It's still a story we love to tell, but it's sad that we have zero evidence. Another story, when I was little, my grandma had sent pictures of me, my mom, and this other individual, who I will not be naming by name, to a woman who said that she was a clairvoyant picture reader. She could look at your photos and tell you very interesting stuff about yourself, mainly how you are right now, but also your connections to others, and sometimes a little bit of your past and your future. Now, my mom didn't believe this at all, zero. And the best part is, you gotta be in context, this was before email kind of existed. I feel old when I say that. And my grandma had to send them by physical mail, in an envelope, over to to that woman's house without any background information on us. She literally just had to send a picture hi, my name is this and this is my grandson, my daughter, this other dude, and etc., etc. We would love to, have you read our pictures or their pictures. Bye-bye, essentially. Oh, and here's some money. That was always in there because we'd seen the letter. Additionally, you gotta realize social media didn't exist yet, so she couldn't have looked anything up on us. Because we were not on Google. We were not findable anywhere. She came back, she wrote back a letter with eerily specific information. Stuff that she could have she could have not known. Also funny, the first thing she said on my mom's picture was yeah, she doesn't believe in this, does she? She doesn't believe in this at all. And my mom was like, oh my God, I did actually very much not believe in that. But she was so specific and so accurate that we were like, oh, this is crazy. But here's the thing. The individual that I don't mention by name, who, by the way, you should, just take it from me, you should dislike the guy. Dislike the guy. She had said, there's something absolutely wrong with this dude. He hides a lot. He does a lot of weird, wacky stuff. There's definitely something out of his picture and his energy that I do not trust ever. And the other people's pictures, your daughter and your grandson, the grandson, of course being me, should be aware of this. Thing is, the guy had no idea my grandma had sent those pictures in, and he flipped. And my mom was just like, yo, this is just a fun thing. Like, why are you taking this so seriously? Without giving away any information, she was 100% dead as right, and there is a reason that I absolutely despise the dude. So, which was really whack because... Oh, and she also predicted my sister's birth. Yeah, I forgot that. She was like, at some point she looked at my mom's picture and she was like, so in this and this year, this and this month are going to be really important, not sure why. And the months were literally the month my sister was conceived and the month my sister was born. Like, but that was the kind of stuff, like, because me and my mom, we actually found those letters from her from years ago, like a few weeks back, and we read through them and we were just still like, oh my God, this is still accurate. And like future predictions were very accurate. Super crazy. I actually looked her up on Facebook. I should message her, just being like, hey, do you still do this? Because I make videos and that would be such an interesting thing. Please, I'll pay you. Actually, I should definitely do that. I think you would enjoy that. I mean, if you've come this far in this particular episode, you would probably enjoy that. And now here's the last story that I'm going to tell you. And this story is not even mine. This story was told to me by a university friend. He told me the craziest story, and it's amazing coming from him because he did not believe in the paranormal before this happened. Because usually these kind of stories is always like, it happens to someone who already was like super into this stuff. But he was genuinely... He didn't believe it. He was like, yeah, ghosts, like, I don't know, it could, but probably not. Seems very unlikely. Then he literally came back after his trip, came over to my house, sat down, and he said, Quinten, I believe in ghosts now, and I have a story for you. Oh my God, I'm so excited to tell this one. It's not even my story, but it's probably the best one here. So his name's Leonard, and we used to study together, and for a full year, he studied in Japan. Half a year he had like an internship, and half a year he had like what we called an external minor, which meant that he was allowed to take similar classes we would do on uni, but he would do them in Japan. For context, he's this ginormously tall guy, over 2 meters tall, quite physically fit, all that kind of stuff. This is not important to the story, but it's fun for you to imagine. Anyway, he went there, and he also met another Dutch person over there, and I'm not sure if they came from our study or if he was from another study and also happened to be there at the same time. Regardless, he had finished his study pretty early, and he had like a quarter of a year or something, like a few months to just be in Japan and just travel throughout. Now you gotta know that in Japan, people are very superstitious generally, and they believe in the paranormal quite a bit, and they really are a don't mess with this type of people generally. So he was in this town, and they had a guide who was a Japanese man, and over there somewhere there was like this site past the mountains, and there was supposed to be a tunnel, like a haunted tunnel. And everyone there in the village would be like, for the love of God, do not go over to that tunnel. Genuinely, it was barricaded. People were like, we don't go there. Like, no one is funny or brave or whatever enough to just randomly go over there. Please, foreign people, don't go over there. They were basically like that to my friend. And he didn't believe in that, so he just really wanted to see. He was like, yeah, I'm definitely gonna visit that. We're definitely gonna go there. And their guide was like, please, my guy, don't do this. I will also not be guiding you there. I will not be following you there. Don't go there. And they were like, yeah, no, we ain't going there. We ain't going there. They definitely did. He and the other Dutch guy went over to that place. First, they had to go through like a forest, and then they encountered like this very long metal fence. Like there was this high fence, it was like stretching around the area because literally the local people had barricaded the whole thing because you were really not supposed to go there. The moment they approached, a motion sensor went off, cameras like pointed at them, spotlights went on, and obviously they couldn't hear what was being said on the signs, but it was genuinely a go away kind of a thing. So they were like, oh, sorry, and walked backwards behind some trees until the motion sensor stopped, cameras went off, and then they crouched underneath a little hole somewhere in one of the fences. This didn't trigger the motion sensor, so the people guarding that on a remote distance through those cameras had no idea they had snuck through. Then essentially you had to go up like a mountain path, and they basically he described that mountain path as fully worn down. There was no one there fixing the potholes, fixing anything. The whole thing was fully broken off. And basically, as they went up the mountain, the only thing they had to do at some point was turn right over to like a wider area, like a wider piece of flat ground. And Japanese insects are pretty loud. You know, you have those large, I don't know what they're called, like cicadas, I don't know how you pronounce it, but they're like these large beetles that go like, so he was like, at night there were like birds, there were insects, and he literally was like, yeah, we were hyping each other up a little bit, like, oh my god, we're gonna do this, oh we're gonna do this, oh we're gonna get so haunted. You know, they were really like in that moment, like trying to hype each other up. There was a lot of sound, and he literally told me, he said, Quinten, the moment I walked around that corner, the world went silent. There were no more bugs making sound. All animals had stopped making sound. There were no birds. There wasn't even wind. And he told me like, it was like we were just both like shut up at once. He said on the other side of that flat piece of ground, of like that little valley kind of a thing, was the tunnel. And the tunnel was fully barricaded with like large blocks of cinder, like these huge cinder blocks locking up everything there was apart from like a 20 centimeter thing at the top. There was nothing there. But he was like, he told me, he said, Quinten, it was like the tunnel directly looked at us, as if it was staring at us. And it was like, I'd never felt something like that in my life. And they walked over there, and one of the first things they saw like on the valley ground was like a very, very deep hole. And he literally told me like, I have no idea how deep that hole was. And he told me like when he took a picture of the hole, like with a flashlight on, there was nothing, fully black. Just absolutely zero things. So he walked over to the other side, and they stood like right up against the cinder blocks of the tunnel. And he told me like on the other side you heard like water dripping, which makes sense because you know water can get into that very easily when it's like a mountain tunnel. So here like basically there were puddles. And he said in that puddle we heard just footsteps, just very slowly stepping into the water. And he said maybe there was like some sort of animal trapped in there, so they tried to scare it to see if it would run off. Now this guy, like I said, he's very tall, he can be very loud, he has a pretty deep voice, so he basically just started banging on those cinder blocks being like, ah! Same story. The same slow footsteps. Nothing faster, nothing stopped. It was basically just like, and he told me that it wasn't like a dripping sound, it was genuinely a step, which sounds very different from something dripping down into the water. So he was like, at some point, he took his phone and he stuck his hand through the top of the cinder blocks. Because like I said, he's a tall guy. And he took a picture with flash, took his hand back out, fully black, nothing. He was like, okay, very deep tunnel. He did it again and he angled it to the floor because he was like, you know, there's definitely like fluids in there, there's water in there. I can't take a picture of the floor because the floor is only like 2 meters, 3 meters down. With my flash on, definitely get a picture. Took a picture, took his arm back out with his phone, nothing. Fully black image. It was impossible for him to take any pictures inside of the tunnel. So they kind of got like a little bit like creeped out, and they went back a little bit and they started filming the tunnel. And this video still exists, but I don't have it. And he told me like on the video, when you listen to it, you literally heard the stereotypical like haunted noise you would see in movies. He literally is like, he said, when you listen to that video, you literally hear us like mess around because we were like scared and we were trying to hype each other up. But you literally heard stuff like, he was like, it's very quiet, but that freaked me out. He kept the video though. Like I really want to ask him for that file at some point. But they basically went back. They snuck back down under the fence. They snuck back into their youth hostel, and they were laying there at night in bed. Their tour guide was really like, yeah, you guys are really stupid. This is like a huge mistake that you made. And he told me like that whole evening and like a few days after, they felt watched like at all points. He was genuinely scared, even though he went in there not really believing in ghosts. And that was like the first story he told me after coming back from that trip. And he told me, and he told my mom as well, and we were all like, that is a great story. Terrifying, absolutely terrifying. I would have never done that. I would have probably, as a matter of fact, even the trespassing under the fence, I would probably not be brave enough to do that, but like let alone a part where a whole village tells you to not go and like put that much stuff behind. That is how horror movies start, all right? But there we go. These are some stories of paranormal stuff that I think happened to me, and also a story from someone that I know. I would actually love to hear your stories of that. I know that if you're watching this on YouTube, you can just type it in the comments. If you're watching this on Spotify or listening to this on Spotify, I genuinely have no clue how you would do this, but you could tweet it at me at Quinten Hyde or DM me on Instagram also at Quinten Hyde. Thank you so much for listening to this. I thought this was a very fun subject, and I have a ton more stories with my family. I just kind of have to like ask them real quick, like, hey, what did I forget? So that could be a part 2 if you enjoyed this subject. But overall, I would love to see you next time.